Hey there, folks. My name is Hal Fairbank. I'm a former Marine. I'm a small business owner and served my country from 1981 to 2001. And things have changed significantly in that time. Well, what we're looking at here is, more deceit. This is the New York Times. You see how Alaska is called. We know Michigan is called. Michigan has been counted for um, twice now. As of a few days ago, it's been counted, recounted, and confirmed. And Donald Trump is there, winner by 10,000 or more votes, more than 10,000 votes. And it's just that the thing that I wanted to point out, there's a couple of things that are going on right now. People want to recount and people want to say that it wasn't democratic. Well, if you look at this, according to the New York Times and according to other um, maps, 85% of the map belongs to uh, President-elect Donald Trump. 85% of the map. 15% of the map is Hillary Clinton. I mean, you can figure that out just by looking at it yourself, that that's about an 85 to 15% swing. But notice Alaska, they're still not counting Alaska, and we know that Alaska was won by President-elect Donald Trump. And they're still not showing Michigan, when almost every single county in Michigan voted for Trump. And then here's the other thing. This is the Center for Immigration Studies. They put out a map of sanctuary cities, and notice the sanctuary cities, how they, if you were to lay this map over the blue and red county map of the 2016 presidential election, that map matches up perfectly with the county map here. So essentially, what we've got, if we're talking about a democratic process, we're talking about illegal aliens voting, because this is the sanctuary cities. The sanctuary cities are for the illegal aliens. Now, like I said, I served my country for 20 years. I traveled all over the world. I'm a veteran of foreign wars. And I never went into a country without documentation. I never went into a country without getting my passport stamped. I never went into a country without, unless there's occasions that they just look at your passport and they don't stamp it. But at least an immigration officer saw me when I came into that country, and I wasn't skirting the issue. I had documentation for every country, and I've been to almost every country on the planet, and including Mexico, including Canada. Canada and Mexico, they don't actually require a passport. However, I have been asked for a passport in Canada before, and I showed it to them, and I maintain a passport, and I'm just one of those people that does that. Another thing here, notice it still shows Donald Trump at 290. We all know he has 306, but this is just another thing that they're doing. They're not counting Michigan. Now they're going to say up here at the top of the map that they're going to count Michigan at the end of November. Oh well. Well, Michigan's been counted twice. Michigan has reported 100%. There's really no reason not to put Michigan in there. It's just that they are so liberal. The bend is so liberal that they just don't want to show that it was a landslide. And it was a landslide. When you're talking about 85% of the country voting for someone, and then you've got a large majority of illegal aliens. And by the way, the only documented dead people that voted for the Democrats. No documented dead people voted for Republicans. Isn't that amazing? Why are the dead people voting? Also, there are apparently 4 million dead voters on American voter rolls. Now, this is the most um, conservative number, because I've heard this number up to 18 million people, but the conservative number is 4 million, and the documented illegal aliens so far is 3 million. Now that is 7 million people. Think about it. That is more than 10% of Hillary's vote altogether. So when you take 10% illegitimate votes, and we're not talking about the corruption that they already caught them in multiple cases, stuffing ballots and having stockpiled ballots that they caught. They weren't able to actually submit those, but they found stockpiles of ballots all voting for Hillary. Notice these blue states here that are, when you compare it to the sanctuary cities, you see how they match up perfectly. And so this is a strong indication that there is a much larger illegal vote than what is being reported by the corrupt media. Look, Alaska is not showing correctly. Michigan is not showing correctly. The total votes are not showing correctly. When I went to bed on election night, I noticed that Trump was 2 million ahead, and I noticed that even though he won a large majority of all counties in California, Washington and Oregon and Nevada, I was watching the popular vote continuing to spin up right there under Hillary, and Donald Trump's was at a dead stop, even though he had won the majority of the counties in California, Nevada, Oregon, and Washington. And so, when you're looking at the numbers here, people, you see 290 against 232, it's not correct. It's still not correct. On November 27th, it's still not correct. And so you gotta see November 27th. You have to get tired of the media's bullshit at some point. And there is also additional evidence that at least 5 states were stolen by Hillary. And in other words, and I've heard some say that there's a possibility that if no corruption were involved in this election at all, that there would have been 48 states that went for Donald Trump, and only 2 that went for Hillary. And when you start looking at this, one of my primary points is that this is very democratic. If you were to have these few blue counties turn the election, California, New York, Chicago, or Illinois, but Illinois is primarily, Chicago area there. If you were to let those 3 major cities turn the election for the entire country, that would not be democratic. So this talk of getting rid of the Electoral College, if you got rid of the Electoral College, you would have never had a President Clinton. President Clinton did not win the popular vote, and he won on the Electoral College. So now they want to change and say, let's get rid of the Electoral College. It's ridiculous. The reason that it was built into the Constitution as it is to protect from a few massive states taking over, or with massive populations taking over and doing something that the rest of the country does not want to do. So when you take this 7 million, at least 7 million votes away from Hillary that were illegal aliens and dead people, then Donald Trump wins by almost 7 million, because it's literally a very, very close popular vote right now. But when you go ahead and take away the additional 5 states and all of the faked votes, then you end up with a even far greater popular vote win and an even far greater electoral count win. This was a landslide through and through. America has spoken, and it is quite clear that the illegal aliens and a few very deceived wealthy elite have turned the media into a device that has got the millennials up in arms over something that does not exist. Here's what I say. When the media and the liberal elite do something like this and it causes riots in the street for no reason, they need to be held accountable. Once we start holding people accountable for lying and causing riots based upon their lies, because the millennials will not research it, they will not look into it, they will not look for the truth. They hear something on the media, it gets twisted, and they run with it. I have never seen anything like this. Now, I have great hope for the millennials. I believe that one day the millennials will wake up. I believe that their eyes will be opened and they'll be a great force in America. Right now, they are truly not critical thinking people. Please, millennials, if you're listening to this, don't be angry. Look it up. Do some research. When you find something that says one thing, verify it. Go back to the source. See if it's correct. See if there's anything that will show you or detail or give evidence to whether it is correct or not. I recommend Stefan Molyneux. I don't know if I said that correct, but you can go to his website. He's a very intelligent person with a very high IQ. And look at one of his videos called Untruth about Donald Trump. Go to another video called More Untruth about Donald Trump, and go to his another video called Even More Untruth about Donald Trump. The untruth that the media is putting out there is literally insane. I'll give you an example. Donald Trump said that we need to look at countries that are producing terrorists like Syria and not let them come into the country. Okay? In other words, we need to put a halt on Muslims coming into the country seeking immigration into the United States. These are not American citizens. These are people who are seeking to come to America. But what did the media say? The media said Donald Trump is refusing to let Muslim United States military members back into the country. He never said that. He never intended to say that. That was completely fabricated. Donald Trump said a temporary ban on Muslim immigrants until we can vet them properly. He didn't say no more Muslim immigrants into the country. He said that until they can be vetted properly. That is not racist. That is actually in the Constitution, and that is actually the President of the United States' responsibility. The President of the United States has a responsibility to protect our borders. It's because we are a country. And as Donald Trump has said, if we do not have borders, we are not a country. You know, yes, we let people into our country. My wife came into this country and became a citizen. It took her 10 years. As a matter of fact, we couldn't even get married until she became a citizen, because it would have delayed her citizenship process, because they would have thought that by getting married she was trying to speed it up. So there's some speed bumps, I would say. It cost her some money, and it cost her 10 years. My stepson, he came to this country, and he went through the process. It took him 8 years, and it cost us, quite a bit of money for him to become a citizen. But I'm a person who has, 66% of my family is immigrants. My sister is married to a person from Austria. I've got a lot of people in my family who are legal immigrants. We love immigrants. America loves immigrants. We don't care what color you are. We don't care what country you come from. You become an American citizen legally, and then you're here, you're a citizen. But if you just creep across the border, okay, folks, you really have to look at the cost of illegal immigration. Now, there are certain costs that are $1.8 billion. That's one cost. There is another cost for sanctuary cities of $650 billion. There is yet another cost that I read of $900 billion. Now, you have to understand, not only are illegal immigrants taking welfare, but they are not using it here in the United States. They're using a portion of it, but a large portion of it. The Bank of Mexico receives $58 billion from people who are in America illegally, and that's documented. That's just one bank. That's annually $58 billion per year. All right. So the money that they're getting is an undocumented wage. It's going back to their country of origin, okay, primarily Mexico, but we have people from all over the world here illegally. ICE can tell you that. They can show you the statistics on that. You can just go to the ICE website and they can show you the statistic of which people that they have incarcerated, and it's a small number from every country around the world, but primarily it's Mexico. So the $58 billion that goes down there is not taxed. And they say 18 million, but as much as 35 million illegal immigrants from Mexico are here. As I keep researching this, it looks more and more like it's 35 million illegal immigrants. Now, that is 1/7 of our population. And if 1/7 of our population gets free schooling, free medical, free welfare, free food stamps, at this point we have less people in this country working and supporting the majority of people. We've got young people, we've got millennials, we've got elderly people who are retired or just living on Social Security, and so the percentage of people who are actually working is less than 50%. So that 50% has to support the entire welfare program, the entire food stamp program, and there are, we're talking about welfare and food stamps, but there are so many of these programs out there. The illegal immigrant program, which will provide people with welfare, food stamps, Walmart cards, and a whole slew of these things that are supposed to help immigrants get started. Now, as I said, my wife is from China, and she came here. She didn't receive any of these things, but there are people that I am fully aware of who have come from outside the country, have brought their parents over. Their parents are elderly and retired, and suddenly their parents are eligible for Social Security and have been receiving Social Security. Okay, I have a big problem. Okay, I'm self-employed. I'm not even going to be receiving that kind of Social Security. When I was in the military, I was receiving, pennies on the dollar of what the civilian population was receiving. So my Social Security is going to be next to nothing. They don't count me now even though I pay millions in taxes. I don't count as a person who receives Social Security because I'm not paying into the Social Security program, even though I'm paying tons and tons of taxes, and 168 taxes, to be honest. The small business people are getting crushed, but that's a different video. But what we have is a serious immigration problem. All right. This, if you just take the $900 billion that it costs for illegal aliens, and you take the 650 billion for illegal immigration that goes to the sanctuary cities, just those two things is $1.5 trillion. That is almost every single penny that the IRS collects in taxes annually. Okay, so how can you survive? That's the federal government. Of course, there's all the state taxes and the state programs that take and take and take. And then additionally, besides the taxes that you pay in your federal and state taxes, you pay a lot of taxes when you buy fuel. For instance, in California, 56 cents goes to roads. And so you'd think we'd have great and fantastic roads because they've got federal programs for the interstate, they've got state programs for the state highways, they've got local programs, and then you've got all the fuel taxes, and then every single truck that drives down the road. As I used to own a trucking company, I would know this. Every single truck that goes down the road pays a huge tax because the trucks are heavier, and so there's a weight tax that you pay monthly, actually, and it's a fuel tax. It's in your fuel tax when you pay your fuel tax. In addition to that, but for every state that you drive through as a company, you have to pay to each state the number of miles that you've driven in that state. A lot of people don't know that, but every trucker that's driving down the road is paying for the roads. We should have the best roads in the world, but there is such a abuse of tax dollars. And what the politicians do, unlike what we do as people, when we are running short on money, we stop spending. And we have to be fiscally responsible. Otherwise, we'll go bankrupt, and we will run out of money, and we will be kicked out of our houses, and we will lose our cars, and they will be repossessed. But that's not what the federal government does, and the state governments. What they do is ask for more. And we can't do that. We can't go into our bosses and ask for more. I can't go to my customers and ask for more. But the federal government does not have to be fiscally responsible. And folks, that's a big problem. They need to become fiscally responsible. So in closing, let's summarize. The election map shows that 85% of the country voted for Donald Trump, county-wise, and so that's Democratic. The electoral process is something that's in the Constitution. It's in the Constitution for something very good. Now, I just want to say to you, the way that the country is going, and that the way that the map is turning more and more red in the past 6 elections, if we lose the electoral process, it's not going to matter for conservatives, because we are going to win every election. We're going to win the popular vote, especially if Donald Trump is extremely successful in his programs, which I believe that he will be. I've already seen what's going to be happening with the wall. The wall is not going to be just a wall. Now, think about this. The wall is going to be paid for by Mexico. How? Because when you cross the border, you'll have to pay a fee. When you cross through the wall, you're going to have to pay a wall fee. Now, Donald Trump hasn't said that, but I imagine that there's going to be a crossing fee. It makes sense. Additionally, I've seen plans that they're planning on putting a high-speed rail all the way across the bottom of the United States on this wall. Okay, so if it's a high-speed rail, that's also making money. If it's a situation where you're just talking about the amount of money that is going to be saved by illegal activity not happening at the border, that alone is going to pay for it. If you start talking about Donald Trump starting to stop the money bleeding out of America south to Mexico, okay, by inhibiting illegal immigrants from sending money to Mexico. Well, first of all, by getting rid of the illegal immigrants, they're going to basically stop sending a large portion of their money to Mexico, because they're not going to be here to earn the money and take away jobs from people in America to send the money back down. So when you take a look at the way our government does things that are fiscally irresponsible and don't make money, and then you take a look at just the wall, for instance, and stopping that $58 billion from going out, and stopping an additional $58 billion in a deficit by putting an end to NAFTA and the TPP. Well, we're going to be reaping rewards for decades on that, and that is going to be a totally America First program. That's just one thing. When we start looking at the healthcare program, when we start looking at states being able to bid contractors in other states instead of there being these imaginary lines, we are really going to see results that we are all going to appreciate. I believe that prices are going to go down for us. I believe that we as Americans are going to be able to afford homes more readily. Home ownership is down, not just for all Americans, but particularly for African American and minority Americans. Home ownership is down. Home ownership is lower than it has been in 50, I believe it is 56 years. And there has been nothing good that has come out of the Obama administration. It is a terrible failure of a president. And the only thing that he can be known for is failed Obamacare, and that he was the first black president. As I said earlier, I am a person of a interracial marriage. There are many interracial marriages in my family, and we have Hispanic in our family. We have European. We have a number. We have Asian, and a number of people in our family. We love them like any of our other family, and so please, this whole racial divide has to end. The way I was raised in a ghetto. I was raised in government housing. I was raised extremely poor, and I was raised colorblind. All my friends were of a minority status, and I didn't think about it that way, but basically I'm colorblind. Whenever anybody attempts to say, and it doesn't happen very often, but when I say things like this, people say, "Oh, you're racist." Okay, this racial divide, it doesn't really exist. It's a thing that exists, and there are some people who are racist, if you will, but the majority of people, I want to say 90% of Americans, simply are not racist. And this whole thing is fabricated by the media. And again, we have to make the media pay. We have to make the media responsible when they cause riots. We have to make the media pay financially. So if they force me, and if you think about it, do you like being forced to do things? Well, one thing you are forced to do is, if you have TV, you are forced to have CNN, CNBC, ABC, CBS, and Fox. And you don't have a choice. You have to have it. To me, that doesn't work for me. So if you don't like being forced to do that, then you just simply say, I'm not going to have TV. Cancel your cable, cancel your satellite, and that's what I have done. With the internet, there's no need for TV. We have Netflix, we have Hulu, we have some other things like that for entertainment, but we don't have to have what the corrupt media has to say forced down our throat. Well, I'm going to end it there, and leave your comments. Let me know what you think. Appreciate you watching.